In the early hours of January 3, the lights went out in Caracas. But this wasn't just another rolling blackout, which the people of Venezuela have grown used to over the last decade. This was total, absolute darkness. A coordinated cyberstrike had paralyzed the Guri Dam hydroelectric plant, cutting power to 80% of the nation. Radar systems went blind. Air defense networks were severed from their command centers. And then, the sky began to roar. In a pre-dawn raid involving 150 aircraft, including F-35 stealth fighters launching from the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Caribbean, the U.S. executed Operation Absolute Resolve. The mission parameters were surgical, but the implications were nuclear. They didn't just capture President Nicolas Maduro. They effectively seized control of the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. 300 billion barrels. For the mainstream media, the headline is simple: justice, drug cartels, and the end of a dictatorship. But for the financial markets? The headline is very different. It is about who controls the energy engine of the Western Hemisphere for the next 50 years. This operation has sent shockwaves from Beijing to Moscow, and all the way to New Delhi. The Monroe Doctrine, the 19th century policy that warns outside powers to stay out of the Americas, is back with a vengeance. Today, we are doing a deep dive. We aren't just looking at the raid. We are analyzing the military tactics, the hidden battle for Guyana, the broken oil infrastructure, and the trillion-dollar question. Who wins, who loses, and what does this mean for the price of petrol in Mumbai or New York? Part 1, The Trigger and the Tactics. Why now? For years, Washington tolerated the Maduro regime. What changed in 2026? Intelligence reports suggest that the trigger wasn't just drugs. It was a looming invasion. For months, Maduro had been massing troops on the border of Guyana, threatening to annex the oil-rich Essequibo region. This wasn't just a border dispute. It was a direct threat to American interests. ExxonMobil controls the massive Stabroek oil block just off the coast of Guyana. If Maduro had moved, he would have controlled not just Venezuela's oil, but Guyana's too. Washington decided to strike first. The operation itself was a masterclass in hybrid warfare. While cyber attacks disabled the grid, U.S. Special Forces executed a vertical envelopment of the Miraflores Palace. But they weren't alone. Reports indicate brief but intense firefights with Russian PMC contractors, the remnants of the Wagner Group, who had been serving as the regime's Praetorian Guard. The fact that U.S. forces engaged Russian mercenaries in South America is a geopolitical earthquake that we are only just beginning to understand. Part 2, The Economic Reality Check. But once the smoke clears, the U.S. interim government faces a nightmare. You cannot just flip a switch and turn the oil back on. To understand why, you need a quick chemistry lesson. Venezuelan oil is not like Saudi light crude. It is extra heavy sludge. It has the consistency of molasses. To move it through a pipeline, you need to mix it with diluents, or process it in massive industrial plants called upgraders. Here is the problem. After years of sanctions and brain drain, those upgraders are rusted metal. They have been stripped for parts. The skilled engineers who knew how to run them are driving taxis in Madrid or Bogota. Without these upgraders, that 300 billion barrel reserve is effectively worthless dirt. Wall Street energy analysts estimate it will take 5 to 10 years, and over $100 billion in capital expenditure, just to get production back to 2 million barrels a day. So, if the oil won't flow for years, why did the US invade? Because in the long game of energy security, you don't buy assets for today. You buy them for 20 years from now. But who is going to pay for this reconstruction? Western banks are terrified. The legal risks are insane. And this brings us to the biggest losers of this conflict. Part 3, The Dragon and the Bear. China has loaned Venezuela over $60 billion in the last decade. These were oil-for-cash deals. China built stadiums and sent cash, Venezuela paid them back in crude oil shipments. With the regime gone, the new US-installed government has already signaled it may declare that debt odious. In international law, odious debt is money borrowed by a dictatorship for its own survival, not for the benefit of the people. If the new government defaults, Beijing faces a total loss. Right now, Chinese supertankers are sitting idle in the Caribbean, denied entry to Venezuelan ports. They aren't just losing an ally, they are facing the biggest bad debt write-off in the history of the Belt and Road Initiative. Russia is in an even tighter spot. Moscow used Venezuela as a forward operating base in the Americas. They sold them Sukhoi jets, tanks, and air defense systems on credit. That door has just been slammed shut. Russia has lost its biggest foothold in the Western Hemisphere overnight, and its military contractors have been neutralized. Part 4, the India opportunity. But while China panics, New Delhi might be quietly calculating a strategic win. This is the angle most Western analysts miss. India is the world's third-largest oil importer, importing over 85% of its needs. Energy security is the single biggest vulnerability for the Indian economy. Here is why India matters in this scenario. First, the refineries. Processing Venezuelan sludge requires complex, high-complexity refineries. The US Gulf Coast has them. But so does India. Reliance Industries' refinery in Jamnagar and Nayara Energy's refinery in Vadinar are specifically designed to handle this heavy, sour crude. In fact, before sanctions, India was one of Venezuela's most reliable cash buyers. Second, the debt. Venezuela still owes ONGC Vij, India's state-owned energy firm, over $500 million in unpaid dividends from the San Cristobal oil field. Under Maduro, that money was gone. But under a new administration desperate for cash, India has a unique leverage. Diplomats in New Delhi could propose a rupee for oil mechanism, or simply promise immediate investment in exchange for clearing those dues. If the US wants to stabilize Venezuela quickly, they cannot rely solely on American companies, who are slow and risk-averse. They need a hungry market that can move fast. India fits that profile perfectly. If Indian companies can secure long-term contracts for Venezuelan crude at a discount, it would be a massive boost for the Indian economy. Cheaper heavy crude means better margins for refiners, and potentially, a shield against Middle Eastern price volatility for the Indian consumer. Part 5, the conclusion. So, what is the endgame? We aren't looking at cheap gas next week. We are looking at a long, messy occupation. We are likely to see an insurgency rise from the remnants of the regime, funded perhaps by outside powers who lost out. The US has effectively revived the Monroe Doctrine, signaling that Latin America is off-limits to Eastern powers. But the cost? A broken country that will cost billions to fix. The irony is sharp. In an era where the West preaches green energy and decarbonization, the world's superpower just launched the largest military operation of the decade, to secure oil. Is this a liberation? Or is it a hostile takeover disguised as a police action? And the most important question for US, should India step in and buy this oil, or stay away from the conflict? I want to hear your take in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more geopolitical deep dives.